say it's all right.
Okay, so lots going on in the world. Recently, we launched a little helicopter on the planet Mars. I don't know if you saw that on the news, but for the first time in history, human beings have flown a vehicle on another planet, a vehicle like an ordinary helicopter, except this wasn't an ordinary helicopter. It was a very finely designed helicopter that is able to fly in very thin air. It's pretty amazing. The air on Mars is about, I don't know if it's 1% or 2% of what we have on the Earth, but it's about, if you were standing on the surface of Mars, it would be like standing on top of Mount Everest times 3, about 90,000 feet high, the equivalent amount of air you would have on Mars. So that means it's really thin, right? I mean, that's, people can barely breathe at 29,000 feet, which is the height of Everest. But 3 times higher, forget about it. And so good morning, Beatrice.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Great. Good to see you.
You too.
Good to see everybody today. Really, that's the best part of this is getting together with folks.
I see you too.
Um, and well, we're talking about this little helicopter that rose from the surface of Mars that we had sent there about a month ago on board the Perseverance probe or module, which is a machine that goes around on wheels on the planet Mars, searching for life, searching for evidence of water and the makeup of the planet. It's really one of the great ingenious devices that humans have ever devised. And on board the Perseverance was a little helicopter. And last week it flew for the first time for 40 seconds. It went up and down. And people were very excited about that. You're shaking your head, George. Yeah, that was very exciting. I would show you a video of it, but I don't think you could really see it that well. But you have to take my word for it that it went up and down, not too far up. And it will be making longer flights in the future, exploring places that the rover cannot go to. So this is very exciting. Everybody at NASA was jumping up and down, and rightfully so. They spent a lot of time developing this helicopter, which flies in very, very thin air, almost nothing kind of air. And that's really interesting too. It's interesting that Mars has such a thin atmosphere. Mars is about 2/3 of the mass of the Earth, and somehow it lost its atmosphere. We're not exactly sure what that atmosphere was like in the beginning, um, but now it's gone along with the water. We think that Mars once had a lot of water as well, and that water has disappeared. Some people think it went off into space, evaporating. Others think it sank into the soil and was absorbed by the planet. So we don't know yet. We're not sure, but right now Mars is like a frozen desert, where the average temperature is about 70 below zero, and very cold, very, very dry. Not a place you'd want to settle into if you had a choice. So here we are on the wonderful, warm, and beautifully breathable air of Earth, plenty of water, blue skies, clouds, life, incredible, absolutely incredible. Isn't that a wonder? Isn't that,
Wonderful.
you know, truly the real wonders are the ordinary things about us. The air, the light that comes into the room, the ground under our feet, and life, maybe the most wondrous thing of all. Um, life is so commonplace that we ordinarily don't think much about it. Maybe when we see a very special bird or a special animal, we, uh, remark on the um, wonder of life. But all life is full of wonder. All life is part of a great mystery, an enormous mystery that is strewn out among the stars. Any questions or comments?
It's just amazing.
It's
It
wonderful.
is amazing. It
Yeah,
is truly
it's
amazing.
incredible. It's wonderful.
Thank you. I don't know why it is that we humans don't take more time just to acknowledge how amazing this world is. How even ordinary things here, here's a lemon, right? A lemon, here's what's this? Tomato. Huh? Tomato, here's strawberry. Ordinary things that are surround us all the time. And yet these things are truly extraordinary. When you study them in a little depth, you find out that they they are truly amazing. All of these things on the table that I mentioned, the lemon and the tomato and the strawberry, are all flowering plants or come from flowering plants. The flowering plants were one of the great revolutions in life's history. They didn't exist before 140 million years ago, which sounds like a long time, but really it isn't. And when you consider the Earth has been around for nearly 5 billion years, and life has been on the Earth for almost 4 billion years, we think. And so the flowering plants came about only 140 million years ago, and yet they changed the world. Most of what we eat is from flowering plants. The grasses, all of our vegetables and fruits, the grasses, I should say, where we get our grains from, like rice and wheat and corn. Those are all from flowering plants. And so maybe we wouldn't be here without flowering plants. I don't know. But at any rate, flowering plants were one of the great moments in history when things really changed. And we have many such moments in history. Certainly, the formation of the earth and the sun at the same time, about actually 4.5 billion years ago, was a big event, and the universe itself appeared about 14 billion years ago.
Wow.
Right. That's an amazing number, isn't it? 14 billion years ago. And then the universe consisted of only hydrogen and helium gas. No stars, no planets, nothing you could stand upon, and certainly no life, just gas. So, how did we go from gas to the world of today? That's pretty amazing, right? I mean, one of my teachers once remarked, how did we go from hydrogen gas to giraffes? That's a big, big change. What do you have to do to make such a change? What has to happen in the universe to become a giraffe? First, you've got to have a source of energy to drive life. And what's that source of energy today? Where does most of our energy come from in this world, if not all of it? Any guesses?
Air.
The air? That's a good answer, but I'm looking for another answer. Um, what about the light in the room? The light in the room. Without the light, things would not grow. At least not bananas and peaches and lemons. Um, Without the light, there would be no life as we know it. Where does the light come from?
Electricity, for one.
Electricity, that's one place it comes from. Where else does it come from?
From the outside, the world.
That's right, the outside.
The
That's
sun,
right. What is it that the sun? Who said the sun?
the myriad.
Oh, yeah, that's it. The sun is the chief source of the light. Actually, in a religious sense, we could go deeper than that. But the sun is the source of our light, and that is a miracle in itself, a wonder of wonders. How is it that gas becomes a sun, which is what happened in the beginning of time, when there was only gas and nothing else? Somehow the gas contracted and became stars. Hmm? Lots and lots of stars. Stars in all directions, gigantic stars. Stars we don't see much today because at that time they were able to form into very large stars which burn fast, maybe lasting only for 1,000,000 years or so. But in that time they did something remarkable. They not only produce light and heat, but they produce heavier atoms. So we go from hydrogen to helium to lithium to beryllium to carbon and nitrogen and oxygen and all the way up to iron and beyond. And without those, we wouldn't be sitting here. Because in the beginning, even if you had a star out of hydrogen, you can't make a giraffe out of hydrogen, right? You've got to have things like carbon, oxygen, nitrogen. And those come about when stars burn their fuel. That's pretty amazing, right? I mean, oh wow, who would think that a star would produce the kinds of atoms necessary for life? It's mind-boggling. It's I'm sitting here and I'm shaking my head like you are. I mean, how is this possible?
Yeah. How is that possible?
Mm-hmm. And so we live in this great mystery, this great wonder, where the stars, for example, produce the atoms necessary for life. And then the stars, after they produce those atoms, now you could have planets like the Earth come about. A planet like the Earth has many different kinds of atoms that contribute to this wonderful world. And it's only because of the star's ability to create those atoms, those heavier atoms. So that is pretty amazing. That is pretty amazing. Um, any questions or comments? I was gonna read you something, but I don't know what I did with it. Okay. Oh. I wanted to read a little passage in this book. This is called Awe-Filled Wonder, and this is by Barbara Fiand, 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 and she's a religious person who's very interested in science. She's a Catholic, and this book is called Awe-Filled Wonder: The Interface of Science and Spirituality. And in it there is a quote from Frijaf Capra, who wrote the Tao of Physics, among other things. And he lives here in Berkeley, by the way. He's a physicist, but very interested in the spiritual nature of the world. And here he writes, I was sitting by the ocean one late afternoon, watching the waves rolling in and feeling the rhythm of my breathing, when I suddenly became aware of my whole environment as being engaged in a gigantic cosmic dance. Being a physicist, I knew that the sand, rock, water, and air around me were made of vibrating molecules and atoms, and that these consisted of particles which interacted with one another. I also knew that the Earth's atmosphere was continually bombarded by showers of cosmic rays, particles of high energy undergoing multiple collisions as they penetrated the air. All this was familiar to me from my research in high energy physics, but until that moment I had only experienced it through graphs, diagrams, and mathematical theories. As I sat on that beach, my former experiences came to life. I saw cascades of energy coming down from outer space, in which particles were created and destroyed in rhythmic pulses. I saw the atoms of elements and those of my body particularly participating in the cosmic dance of energy. I felt its rhythm and heard its sound, and at that moment I knew that this was the dance of Shiva, the lord of the dancers, worshipped by the Hindus. So, pretty amazing. Um, Speaking of Hindus, I have here the Bhagavad-Gita. The Bhagavad-Gita is a religious book of the Hindus. It's called a jewel in the crown, often, of the Hindu literature, and it's about a um, a drama of war set between sides of brothers, a war in which the ultimate reality is revealed. The ultimate reality is called the self. The self, what does that mean? The self to the Hindus is the same as God, the same as we would say in our religions. But this self to the Hindus is in all things. It is part of the world, part of the stars, part of you, part of all life. It vibrates through everything. It is always moving and changing. Everything we see comes from this source that is called the self in India. It is also called Brahman or Brahma. And this self is the great mystery and wonder. Any questions or comments?
That's great. Sure
So
is.
Srijat Capra in his experience says that he was sitting on this beach and all of a sudden the world became a kind of atomic vibration that he actually saw and felt, that he experienced firsthand. And this was a revelation to him. Everything around us, the physicists tell us, is a vibration, is energy. Somehow this energy is contained in the world we see and experience. This energy is creative. It made the first cell on the earth. It made the beginning of life. It made the transition from that first cell to a more complicated cell, which took about 2 billion years, by the way. And that more complicated cell led to us. All the while, plants, tiny plants, were putting oxygen in the air, raising the level of oxygen from almost zero to what it is today, about 20%. The air that we breathe and that most living things need is created by plants of the world. Pretty amazing. Now, some scientists will say that, oh, that's just a coincidence. But is it really? Is it that many scientists see the world as separate, where animals and plants and rocks and minerals and waters, all things are viewed as separate? But from a physical standpoint, all things are made of atoms, and all things are working within the system of atoms, which enables water to exist, which enables carbon dioxide to exist, which plants love and use for their food. In return, the plants give us oxygen. Is that just a coincidence? Perhaps. But it also could be seen as part of a larger system, part of a system that includes not only plants and animals, but the waters of the world, the atmosphere, the ground that we stand upon, and the sun. All of this can be seen as one large living system. Creative system that is responsible for the movement of life and its being. Here is a poem called Mysteries. Yes, truly we live with mysteries, too marvelous to be understood. How grass can be nourishing to the mouths of lambs, how rivers and stones are forever in allegiance with gravity, while we ourselves dream of rising, how two hands touch and the bonds will never be broken, how people come from the delight or the scars of damage to the comfort of a poem. Let me keep my distance always from those who think they have the answers. Let me keep company always with those who say, look, and laugh in astonishment and bow their heads. There's a poem called At the River Clarion. I don't know who God is exactly, but I will tell you this. I was sitting in the river named Clarion on a water splash stone, and all afternoon I was listening to the voices of the river talking. Whenever the water struck the stone, it had something to say, and the water itself, and even the mosses trailing under the water. And slowly, very slowly, it became clear to me what they were saying. Said the river, I am part of holiness. And I too, said the stone, and I too, whispered the moss beneath the water. I've been to the river before a few times. Don't blame the river that nothing happened quickly. You don't hear such voices in an hour or a day. You don't hear them at all if selfhood has stuffed your ears. And it's difficult to hear anything anyway, through all the traffic and the ambition. If God exists, he isn't just butter and good luck. He is also the tick that killed my wonderful dog Luke. Said the river, imagine everything you can imagine, then keep on going. The world is full of mystery and wonder. Each breath is a wonder. Each breath connects us with the great movement of life with the sun, with the air, with the water, with the rain. How is it that we have rain? How is it that water will evaporate from the surface of a river, from a pond, from a glass of water? Water will evaporate into the air and eventually become a cloud. That's pretty amazing, don't you think? I think we still don't know exactly how clouds form. We have ideas about it and we're pretty good at it, but I think we're still going to find out more. And clouds are some of the most wondrous things in the world. They can move for hundreds and thousands of miles across the surface of the earth, and they can drop their water wherever. And that's pretty incredible, right? That's, the rain that comes to us may have come from the Arctic Ocean, may have come from far off in the Pacific, or even from a rainforest somewhere. It's interesting that forests put out a lot of water. They evaporate a lot of moisture, and that water turns into clouds and rain and falls again on the rainforest. Incredible. How is this world so finely tuned, so finely designed? The light in the room, we see the light. How is it our brains can detect this light? We don't see forms of light that um, are not important for us, like infrared light or ultraviolet light. Certain animals and plants can see those. We cannot. It's not important for us. We see a certain range of light that brings about the world in its colors and beauty, and that's how our beings developed. It's quite remarkable that we see light in a brain that's dark. There's no light inside the brain. And yet that's where the image is formed. We have electrical signals, like here's, I have a wire here, and there's electrical signals moving through this wire. This wire is powering this computer that I'm talking to you on. But this electrical signal is invisible. It passes through the wire, but it's basically invisible. If if you took off the insulation on the wire, you wouldn't see anything. Light is basically, well, how shall I put this? Light is invisible until it touches something. The light we see is because atoms in our clothing or the walls or the floor or our bodies reflect the light. That's amazing, right? I mean, otherwise, light would be just like colorless, nothing. But when it passes through something, even the air, it becomes a color. Light has all colors in it. We call it white light, but really it's invisible, but it contains all colors. And those colors become apparent as the light hits certain objects and interacts with those objects. And what is reflected back, we see as colors. It's very complicated, actually, which means when somebody says something is complicated, it usually means they don't understand it. And I freely admit I don't understand light. In fact, Einstein said, if you meet some rascal that comes along and says he understands light, just walk away.
I hear you.
Or something to that effect. Thank you. Thank you. Um, why do we have light? Why do we have warmth? Why do we have water?
Well, we have water to drink.
Yes, that's right. We have water to drink, and that's because water and life go together.
Oh, I see.
Without water, life is not possible. At least life that we know about. Maybe on some far off planet somewhere, there's a form of life that might not need water. We
That's
don't
so
know.
true.
But we have not discovered any life that exists without water. Even life that can dry up and be look like it's dead for 100 years, if you add water, it suddenly becomes to life.
I'd be afraid to drink it.
Because I got to get to the restroom now. Excuse me.
Speaking of water.
I said, all right. I hope so.
I got it.
Okay, babe, I got to get to the restroom. Thank you, baby.
Right, come back. So we have water because of a strange ability of atoms to connect with each other and form new things. Right? All atoms are made of the same stuff. What is that? Protons, neutrons, and electrons, which are particles that have certain charges or no charges, as in the case of a neutron. But they have mass, except for the electron, which has no mass or a very low mass, but it has a charge which enables it to connect with the protons and neutrons and form the atom. Right? The atom is mostly empty space, 99% empty space, and it's basically the protons and neutrons, which are little particles in the center of the atom, and there are electrons flying about outside the atom, and or sometimes inside, but moving about the atom are electrons, and they may be lots of electrons or just one electron. It depends on the atom, but all atoms are made of the same stuff. Now, the protons and neutrons and electrons are all balanced electrically, so that you would think that the atom would be happy just like that and not want to combine with other atoms. Why would they? Because they're happy electrically, but that's not the case. Usually there are some atoms that don't combine with other atoms, such as helium and krypton, and there's about 6 of them, and I can't remember all of them right now. But those atoms don't like to combine with other atoms. They're happy electrically. But most atoms are arranged so that they can reach out to other atoms, which is one of the strangest things. And that strange thing enables this world to exist. It enables water to exist. It enables something like sugar to exist, or proteins. The atom carbon, for example, can latch on to 4 other atoms, making elaborate chains of atoms possible. Without that, we wouldn't be sitting here. The fabric of our proteins, of the fabric of our muscles, of our cells, of our organs are all rely upon the ability of carbon to form patterns that enable a chain-like structures to come about. If you took carbon away, the whole world of living things would collapse. Now, some scientists say that silicon, which also can latch on to 4 other atoms, could also be a possibility for life, but for some reason life has not chosen silicon. Life seems to make choices. It's very interesting. For example, the constituents of our proteins are made from amino acids, and there are hundreds of amino acids, but life has only chosen 20 of them. Why? We don't know. But life can fashion all things from mice to humans to redwood trees to to rhinoceros out of those 20 amino acids. And by the way, it's the plants that create those amino acids or reconstruct them. The plants of the world, which is why ultimately we have to eat plants. Even if we're eating an animal, that animal may have had to eat plants. The reason is because we cannot make those amino acids. Only plants can make all the amino acids that are necessary. So ultimately, plants form the basis of the food we eat, and also they give us oxygen to breathe, which now that's pretty amazing. Now, is that a coincidence?
So true. So true.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the next time you have something on your plate, ultimately it came from plants, and we're eating that because we need to get the correct amino acids from that food.
So amino acid is like a vitamin or something?
Amino acids are like a little structure that makes the proteins of our body.
Right.
They're put together by the body to make. And now what's a protein? A protein is like a building block of our cells, of our um, of all the intricate machinery and structures of our cells. Almost all of that is made of proteins, which are combinations of these amino acids. Well, now, an amino acid, as I mentioned, there's 20 different kinds. So the body has to figure out what order to put those amino acids in. And sometimes there's hundreds and even thousands of them to make a single protein. And the protein is like a little blob that forms like a little brick in the cell. And when you get enough of those little blobs together, then you might have a certain structure in the cell. cables and networks and um, things like what do they call that? Oh, I forget the name of it right now. But the um, the cell has lots of little machines in it, and all those those machines are made of proteins. The proteins also are in the membranes of our cell, the skin of our cells. Each cell has a kind of a coating which is made of fats, but in that fat you find proteins, and those proteins let things in and let things out. So they're very important. And it's impossibly complicated and wondrous. Yes, thank you, thank you. In our cells, there are all sorts of structures that function all the time. We have no idea this is going on, right? You know, we live most of our lives without understanding or knowing that there's an amazing amount of activity going on in our cells all day, all the time, and it's what maintains our cells and ultimately what maintains us. So each cell in the body is like a little world unto itself. It's like a little life of its own. And that cell depends on many things such as water and sugars for energy and proteins which come in the form of amino acids, which somehow the body is able to put together in the right form to make the structures of the cell. And so it's totally wondrous and unbelievable. Any questions or comments? Um, there are wonderful books you can get to read about the cell and how it works. Oh, the word I was looking for before was ribosome. Ribosome, there are millions, there may be thousands and millions of these little structures called ribosomes in the cell. The ribosome helps to put together the proteins of the amino acids in the right order. And these ribosomes are made of proteins and which are made of amino acids. But there can be a million of them in your cell or more. So what we're dealing with are infinitely small structures, but vital structures to the functioning of our bodies. Let me see what I got here. Well, I was looking for a book called The Machinery of Life, and it talks about the different cellular structures and how they function and how they're constructed. For example, there's a little machine in the walls of our cells that turn like a little motor, and when they turn, they put a atom of phosphorus back onto another couple of atoms of phosphorus, and that is the energy structure that creates energy in our cells. And this thing is always turning like a little airplane motor, and very fast. And It's made of proteins and very intricately constructed. How is that possible? Anyway, we seem to have come to the end of the time today.
End of year.
Running a little bit late, but we started late. Any questions or comments? You want me to read another poem, and we'll, or not, or we have enough for one day. So let's when we go to lunch, how about this? When we go to lunch, let's think about what's on our plate.
That's a good thing.
You know, let's think about where this came from and how it's connected with the universe. You know, if it's a piece of toast, then you know it's made from the seeds of wheat, which is, as I mentioned, a flowering plant, which was a revolution in life, and this wheat needed the water, which is made of hydrogen and oxygen, and why should that be? And it thrived in the sunlight. And when we eat that piece of toast, we're actually eating the energy from the sun. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you. See you next time, I hope.
Okay.
Well, we
And be well.
will.